Okay. So we all know staying on top of like the big global economic stuff can be a real chore, right? You don't exactly want to spend your whole day wading through these like super dense reports.
It's simply not light reading.
No kidding. So today we're doing kind of a rapid breakdown of some interesting stuff coming out of China.
Yeah, like a pulse check.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Chinese Premier Li Qiang, he gave a speech at this big forum in Beijing, the China Development Forum, I think it was called.
That's the one. Had a whole bunch of international bigwigs there, CEOs, even a U.S. senator.
Yeah. So we're going to dive into that speech, kind of get the gist of what he was saying. Our main source here is Reuters report on it. And I think it's particularly relevant right now because, well, there's a lot of global economic uncertainty going around. And specifically, the U.S. and China, there's some trade tension brewing, right? So we'll see how this all kind of plays into that whole dynamic.
Definitely a lot to unpack there.
For sure. So to kick things off, what was Li Qiang's kind of main message in this speech?
Well, the core of it was this call for countries to open up their markets, make trade easier. He was basically framing this as like the key to tackling all this instability and uncertainty we're seeing in the global economy.
So basically more globalization, less protectionism.
Exactly. And he was making this appeal, directly to this audience of foreign CEOs and even this Republican Senator Steve Daines who was visiting. It's interesting, right? Like, hey, come on, guys, let's all work together here. And there was even a quote in the report where he talks about resisting risks and challenges.
Right. Almost sounds a bit pointed, doesn't it? Like maybe hinting at certain other countries who maybe aren't so keen on open trade right now.
Yeah, there's definitely that undercurrent. And I think it's impossible to ignore the timing here. Like, Qiang's making this push for open markets just as the possibility of more U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods is kind of hanging over everything.
Oh, yeah, totally. We've got like President Trump announcing these reciprocal tariffs supposed to kick in on April 2nd.
Right, April 2nd. On top of that, we've already got those 20% tariffs that came in this month.
And then there's the whole back and forth thing, right? Like China slapping duties on American agricultural products.
Oh, yeah. And the whole phase 1 trade deal is under review, too. So there's definitely a lot of moving parts, a lot of uncertainty.
Okay, so given all that potential trade friction, what did Li Qiang say about China's policy response to all of this?
Well, he talked about this idea of combining policy intensification with stimulating market forces. Kind of a mouthful, right?
A little bit, yeah.
But I think what he's getting at is basically that the government's going to step up their efforts, but also wants to encourage more activity in the market itself. He also mentioned putting in place more active and promising macroeconomic policies. And then he used this term, intensifying counter-cyclical adjustments.
Counter-cyclical adjustments.
Yeah, basically government actions to smooth out the bumps in the economy.
Yeah.
Like if things are slowing down, they might boost spending to try and kickstart things again.
Okay, so kind of like intervening to stabilize things.
Exactly. But what's interesting here is that while Li Qiang mentioned all these things, he didn't actually go into specifics about what those measures would look like. It was more like laying out a general direction rather than announcing any concrete plans.
Interesting. So more of a watch this space kind of thing.
For sure. And then the other big theme that came through was this whole emphasis on globalization and resisting protectionism.
Right. He was really urging those business leaders to be, what did he say, staunch defenders and promoters of globalization.
Yeah.
Almost like a call to action, right?
Absolutely. And to actively resist unilateralism and protectionism. It's like he's drawing a line in the sand.
And the report mentioned that there were fewer American CEOs at this forum compared to last year.
Yeah, I saw that. It makes you wonder if maybe those rising geopolitical tensions are making some folks a little hesitant to, fully engage.
Yeah, I can see that. And thinking about it, attracting foreign investment has got to be even more crucial for China now, given this whole climate.
Absolutely. China is very keen on bringing in that foreign investment, particularly as they're trying to boost domestic consumption. And, things have been a little sluggish on that front, partly because of the problems they've been having with their property sector. More foreign investment can mean more capital flowing and more jobs being created, which should help get people spending again. We've seen China's state council put out this whole action plan to attract foreign investment with things like measures to make cross-border data transfers easier. And then there were those meetings that happened recently between Chinese officials and these big international company execs, Apple, Qualcomm.
They met with Saudi Aramco and Airbus too.
Yeah, it's like a full court press to show these global players that China's open for business. And it's worth noting that foreign direct investment into China actually took quite a dip last year.
Yeah, so they're really trying to turn that around, it seems.
Exactly. And to kind of connect this back to the broader internal picture, China's also committed to trying to vigorously boost consumption within the country, dealing with that slower demand and the issues in the property market. So attracting foreign investment and promoting international trade, those are definitely high on their agenda.
Yeah, it's all connected, isn't it?
Absolutely. And just to be super clear for everyone listening, our goal here is to understand the information that's being presented in these reports. We're reporting on what's being said and done without endorsing any particular political or economic viewpoints.
Right. We're just trying to lay it all out there.
Exactly.
So to kind of sum this all up, it seems like Premier Li Qiang's message was this pretty strong public call for open markets and for globalization to keep going strong. And he's doing this at a time when there's a kind of uncertainty in the global economy and some very specific trade pressures coming from the United States. So it's a pretty clear signal that China still wants that foreign investment and is really pushing back against protectionist measures.
And I think this whole situation raises a really interesting question for, everyone listening to think about. Given this whole global political and economic climate and the concrete actions we're seeing, things like these tariffs being put in place on both sides, how might these two different perspectives ultimately end up reshaping the global landscape? Like on one hand, you have China advocating for more openness, more trade, and on the other hand, you have the U.S. maybe shifting more towards protectionism. What could the long-term consequences be? How will this affect international businesses? How will this affect consumers around the world? It's definitely something to keep in mind as this whole thing continues to play out.
Definitely a lot to think about. All right, thanks for breaking that all down.
Anytime. Always interesting to see how these things develop.
That's for sure. All right, everyone, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll catch you next time.